Earlier this week, the Outriders developers were having a Q&A with the ambassadors. Since I was live streaming Outriders at the same time at twitch.tv/widdz, I did miss that one, but after checking through it now, I thought I would just make a recap video with the most important and interesting stuff they talked about. So yeah, we're just gonna start right away, and we're gonna start with a lot of general stuff they talked about. So regarding future content and support, if people love the game, they will think of what comes next. They are currently focused on the release right now and the delivery of the most important fundamentals of Outriders. The system is prepared for adding new content in the future. They're currently not considering PvP, which I think is a good thing. They're aware of the importance of Twitch extensions and are working on something, but it may not be there at launch and they can't promise anything. That line right there sounds really interesting to me, because I remember Borderlands 3 and I was pretty amazed with the Twitch extension they had, so hopefully we get something similar. Seasonal events are something they would like to do, but once again, they're waiting to see how the game does on launch. There's so much more they could add and so many untold stories. Then we have CrossSave, so there will be CrossSave between like-for-like platforms like PS4 to PS5, but cross-saves across different platforms like PS4 to PC, for example, is technically challenging and they're still working on it, and it may not happen. There will be 6 character slots, so you can have 1 slot for each class and then the last 2 slots for extras. There will be no loadout system at launch. They had planned for it to be part of the game, but right now they're just electing to just make switching between builds as easy as possible without using a loadout system. Inventory is limited by slots per equipment piece. If you're running out of inventory space, you need to scrap items. However, there's enough slots that you're not going to be doing loads of inventory management. They experimented with an unlimited pool, but people weren't scrapping things for resources, they were just hoarding it instead. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that would actually be me, just hoarding all the stuff. They do have a stash/vault that you can access in the hubs. And talking about the stash or vault, it is limited and they have experimented with different numbers. Currently, they are planning between 50 to 100 slots, and the stash is shared between all characters. Personally, me seeing 50 to 100, I think that is way too little, especially how it seems like you can do so many crazy different builds in this game. And coming from like Division, I even think like 500 is too little. I was hoping to like get 300 to maybe 1,000 slots, but hopefully this will work fine and will not be an issue though, but please increase it. Then we have inventory locking, so they are trying to figure out how to best accomplish this. They want to find a balance of what's easy and accessible versus not making it too easy. Protection versus convenience. So this is basically locking in an item or like making it favorite so you don't accidentally scrap it. So hopefully we get something like this. Then auto scrap, players should be deconstructing across their inventory and stash, and they are not keen to automate too much of this process. So while there is a work in progress plan for auto scrap, they want to eventually decide with the community what the best decision is. When it comes to the loot, everyone has their own and instance loot. They did try out shareable loot, but after balancing, they found that individual loot per player works the best. This method encouraged players to create their own build. And I personally am a fan of this as well. Otherwise, you can just drop all the gear to your friend and everybody will have the same build. And yeah, with this, you just gotta try to make the best of what you get. Then he talked about the solo player experience, and you can play the game solo and your experience of the game will still be really good, since the wheelchair system allows for this and is essentially the difficulty level. As a solo player with good equipment and a good build, you will be able to finish the campaign. Post-campaign content is soloable, but it will be hard, especially reaching the last expedition. There are no hard limitations saying you must be in a team of 3 for any of the content. Right now, the balancing focus is on parties of 3, and there is nothing planned for more players than that at the moment. And I remember hearing back last year why only 3 players and not 4, and the reason they said back then is it's just too much skills and stuff on the screen. So that's why it's limited 3 player. Then we have voice chat and in-game chat. They are relying on platform solutions like Steam, Discord, Skype and all that for in-game voice chat, so there will be none built in. There are discussions at the moment about in-game chat and in-game leaderboards, but there's no immediate plans for it. They want to tackle the most outstanding issues and requests first, and then see what they could potentially do in the future. I would love to at least have an in-game chat. Leaderboards, I mean, it would be fun, but I think you could do third-party stuff for that as well. Because a lot of times in games like this, there are a lot of hackers that just ruins the leaderboards anyway. So I believe more in leaderboards with video footage to actually prove it. But that's a lot of the general stuff. Now we're gonna go over the end game content, which is expeditions. So there will be matchmaking for expeditions, and expeditions are 14 completely new maps. Some are similar regions of the world, so there are story and lore connections, but the maps themselves are completely different and for expeditions only. There is no concern that the time-based rewards will limit the meta in expeditions. Creating builds and finding solutions is a really important pillar in the game. And there's definitely space for your own builds and fairy crafting. They don't want there to be a strict meta. The time-based reward system in expeditions doesn't define everything. It isn't really that strict. There is space for experimentation in creating builds and testing them in the post-campaign content. In playtesting, they found that there are many different ways to build characters that can combine. They do not intend for there to be one best build in the game, but guys, I would recommend to check my YouTube channel 1 or 2 weeks after launch, and maybe there will be a best build in Outriders video. But they are saying no best builds, and your personal best build will depend on your playstyle and who you are playing with. There's not only one way to properly play Outriders. There will be some elements and mechanics in expeditions that are not in the main campaign, but they are keeping that as a surprise for now. At times you will have to think what is the best way to tackle this situation. The new mechanics are not completely different from the rest of the game though. Balancing the game is really complex because there are so many different ways to build a character. They are able to balance on the fly, and they will definitely be observing the meta, buffing and nerfing if needs be. They fully intend to work with ambassadors and players to do this. They firmly believe this is a process they need to do with their players' input, which can be good and also bad if you take too much player input, but I mean overall it's good that they're listening to the community. Then the next topic is guns, skills and gameplay. Some epic quality variants of guns have randomized modification, which can impact the appearance of the gun. The more unique the gun, the more art and gunplay are connected. The importance of cover entirely depends on the character you are building. You can create a character that avoids cover entirely, or create a character that's very reliant on cover. Playing aggressive will be rewarding for some classes. For others with a different approach, it might be wiser to use cover more often. It's all down to personal playstyle, and Outriders accommodates both. If you don't want a really hard challenge, it is still a great game to play and drink with your mates. You can adjust the wall tear or play a particular build or class depending on what you feel like on a particular day. Sometimes you want to really test yourself and push the limits, other times you may not want to. Outriders accommodate both casual and hardcore players. Then they talked a bit about cheating and hacking, and they are of course working on fixing cheaters as a priority. Since the game is not fully on a servers, cheaters will be able to locally manipulate game files. However, the moment they connect to the server, then they can very clearly identify who is cheating. One of the penalties they are considering is not allowing cheaters into multiplayer. If cheaters want to cheat in a single player game, then they can do that if they think it's fun. They just don't want those people to affect other players. Then they talked about what to come beyond launch, and before I get into that, I guess April 1st release date is still looking solid. From their point of view, there's no risk at all that it will not release in 3 weeks. So fairy crafting, there is a lot of new things to experience in the full game, even beyond guns. They are super excited about the fairy crafting, since people will be able to use bigger and better mods. They decided to only show some legendaries in the demo, but there are loads more as well as armor. They expect when crafting becomes available that there will be a lot of new options to explore, and that there are plenty of items that might not be perfect, but after crafting they can become really powerful, since there are so much modifications and freedom when it comes to that. Then we have replayability, endgame and solo play. They want to give the players places in the full game where they can find the best items, build the best builds while experiencing a challenge and having fun. For the devs, replayability is the core principle of the genre. Players also have the possibility of repeating the campaign and then of course expeditions. There aren't any plans for something like a horde mode at launch, but who knows what will come down the line. I think actually in a lot of games I don't like horde mode, but in this game I think it would be super fun. Anyway, progress through the game is down to the personal player, how well you understand the game and the strength of your build. The very end of the game, the Eye of the Storm, will be really challenging if you are a solo player, and your build will need to be perfect to do it by yourself. Then we have the last thing here, which is API tools, extra content and DLCs. If people want to stay with the game, then they can begin looking into things that will make the player's life easier. They are super focused on listening to the game's community and building what they need. The creation of extra content and DLCs will depend on how well the game does. If there is a large enough player base that wants it, they will make it, because the devs love the game and the world they have built. The number of people in the demo so far is promising, but time will tell. But that's gonna wrap up this video. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about all this, and hopefully this video removed some of the last question marks you guys have about Outriders. But yeah, if you're interested in more Outrider videos, then make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you want to catch me live, you could do so as well on twitch.tv/widdz. See you guys in the next video.